Hey guys, welcome to Celebrate Horror 2021. I'm very thrilled to be asked by Sadie to do a reading of sort of a strange book of mine. I'll talk about that in a minute. First of all, happy birthday, Sadie. I'm sure everyone said that. Yeah, happy birthday, Mother Horror. You do a huge amount for the genre. We're all big fans of you. Thank you so much. So, a quick Celebrate Horror 2021 reading. I'm not reading from a fiction book. It's not ostensibly a horror book, but if you've ever done an Ironman or a marathon, run, walk, crawl will bring back some probably painful memories for you. It's a book I wrote about my sort of fitness journey in my fourth decade. When I started my 40s, I was overweight and unfit. And when I finished, I was a little bit fitter. And it's a sort of tongue-in-cheek, it's light-hearted book about what I went through, things I went through. I'm going to read you the introduction, which is just a few pages. It's not too long. Does contain zombies, so if you're a horror fan that doesn't like exercise, stick around and see what you think, okay? And because I'm getting a bit older and I'm now into my sixth decade, whatever, yes, I'm going to have to take my glasses off to read it. So here's the introduction. I'm a professional horror writer with over 40 novels, hundreds of short stories, half a dozen awards, and a couple of Hollywood movies to my name. You'd think that would prepare me for broken ribs, split nails, wetsuit burn that looks like dog food ground down and mixed with tomato sauce, blisters the size of small household pets, cycling for 3 miles behind a guy wearing an all-white tri-suit on a TT bike, and genital chafing. You'd think, but nope. Yes, I'm a horror writer, but I still have to sit down to stop myself from falling down if I cut my finger on a knife in the washing up bowl. I don't do blood, especially my own. Reading and writing horror was in no way any preparation for some of the injuries, physical challenges, sights and adventures I'd encounter when I decided in my early 40s that it was time to get fit. I can write about supernatural terrors, but I still feel queasy when I see a runner pause, bend over, and hurl up a stew of energy bars, multicoloured gels, and desperation. And a zombie apocalypse has nothing on the last few miles of an Ironman run. It probably even smells better. For those of you who like it quick, maybe you're more a fan of the short story than the novel, the espresso rather than a grande latte, or the sprint triathlon instead of the Ironman. Here's the short version. On January the 1st, 2011, at the age of 41, I weighed close to 15 stone. For my American friends, that's 210 pounds. And for a 5'8" chap, this is scientifically known as pretty big. It had been one of those Christmases I always promised myself won't happen. Too much drink, too much food, borderline illegal quantities of quality street chocolate, and nowhere near enough exercise. In fact, around this time I wasn't exercising at all. A walk to the local shop for another bottle of wine was my idea of getting fit. On that New Year's Day, we walked with a group of friends to a local pub in the hills, a challenging hilly 4-mile walk that I'd done many times before. It was harder than ever. When we reached the splendid Goose and Cuckoo, my kids always called it the gruesome cuckoo, I was out of breath, heart thumping. Despite the chill in the air, I was sweating. I felt quite wretched, slothful, unfit, and it was getting so I was a bit disgusted with myself. Even finding something to wear on that walk had been a challenge, as I'd put on so much weight over that decadent Christmas. I was in my 42nd year and putting myself at risk of injury and illness. I stood in the pub garden with my friends, contemplating the traditional bullshit New Year's resolution regime that my wife Tracy and I always begin and then we end soon after. No booze, healthier food. I've got a clear and distinct memory of looking at that one last pint in my hand and not being able to see my own shoes to figure out whether my laces were undone or not, and thinking, it's gone too far. Too far to turn around. Weight gain and fitness loss is insidious, it creeps, but it's gone too far realisation was sudden and it hit me hard. It was the first time I remember feeling my age and it felt shit. 6 pints and a burger later, we walked home, downhill. Even that was a challenge. Strangely, it wasn't that actual moment and that shunning of the fitness resolution made just 12 hours earlier that set my ball rolling towards getting fitter. If anything, that really was the moment I gave up. It sounds glib and self-indulgent, and I'm not throwing, as my daughter's good friend would say in her splendidly deep Welsh accent, a fucking pity party. But I really did think then that it was too late. I was 41 years old, and I mean old. How the hell do you turn things around and get fitter at that age? The changing point between my life before and what my life is now, and yeah, that sounds painfully melodramatic, and yes, my editor will probably tell me this is a non-fiction book, so try to be realistic for fuck's sake. was bumping into a good friend I hadn't seen in a while. It was at a football party, football or rugby training session rather, for our kids, where the parents stood on the sidelines freezing off various body parts, while the kids ran around kicking the hell out of each other and coating themselves in as much mud as possible. His name is Pete. Now I'm sure Pete won't mind me saying that before he'd always been a cheery, slightly chubby bloke, but when I saw him, slim, vigorous, healthy looking, I did a double take. I asked what had happened, and his 3-word response ignited something in me. I got fit. Pretty much that same day, I committed to taking on the National 3 Peaks Challenge along with Pete and 3 other friends. That involved climbing the 3 highest mountains in Scotland, England and Wales, Ben Nevis, Scafell Pike and Snowdon, all in the space of 24 hours, including travel time between them. It was crazy. I couldn't bend over to tie my own shoelaces. But hey, I was 41, so slip-ons were more than acceptable. But I'd always jokingly said that a challenge way beyond what I believe I might be capable of was what I needed to try and get fit. That challenge had now been presented and accepted. And now, to end this short version of the story, here's an even shorter version of the end that will end this shorter version. I got fitter, we conquered the 3 peaks. In 2012, I completed my first 2 marathons. I also bought a road bike, started learning how to swim, and took part in my first couple of triathlons. By 2013, I was 11 stone 8 pounds, which is 162 pounds, and I dropped from a 36-inch to a 30-inch waist. And in August of 2013, I completed my first Ironman race. It was one of the greatest days of my life, and getting there changed my life forever. For the rest of my 40s, I trained for and competed in a dozen half Ironmans, 4 more iron distance events, half marathons, marathon cycling events, and an ultra marathon. I continue to enjoy a beer, and more than just an occasional cake. And I found something that I loved so much that fitness almost became a byproduct of this new way of life, not a final aim. So that's what happened. A decade and 2 pages. But a lot more happened in that time, and it's led to a real change in my life and outlook. Triathlon and exercise has become a way of life, not just something I do to try and keep fit. As much a part of me as breathing and eating. I still like a beer, and it's all about the cake. In fact, I'll dedicate a whole chapter of this book to cake, and I do. Because it's my book and I can, but I'm pretty sure if you've got the fitness bug and you've read this far, it's also certainly all about the cake for you too. And the rubber and the lycra and creaming your gooch before a long bike ride, but that's for a different edition of Run, Walk, Crawl. For those of you who like the slow burn of chafed thighs in an Ironman or the more immersive experience of a longer take on things, I present to you the rest of this book. I'd like to stress it's not an instruction manual or a training guide. Far from it, in fact, as I'll be quite upfront here and now in saying I'm pretty far from an elite athlete. I've never troubled a podium, I'm not particularly quick, and I often quip that if I ever qualify for Kona, the Ironman World Champs, qualification for which is run on an age group basis, it'll be when I'm 75 or older. But I've also never not finished a race I've begun. I'm proud of that, and I've discovered a determination and level of focus, fitness and endurance I'd never ever imagined I might have as I stood outside that pub on New Year's Day 10 years ago and looked down through my half-empty pint, unable to see my feet past my expensively and expansively wrought belly. So this is simply a personal account of how getting fitter in my 40s changed my life and how exercise became a big part of it. I'll talk about training and kit, mindset and physical challenges. I'll offer a few tips here and there with the understanding that training is a very subjective endeavour, and I'll talk about cake. There'll be a few race reports written back at the time I finished the races and tweaked only slightly to sit comfortably within these pages. I hope these reports, as well as the rest of the book, will communicate why I do this, why I love it so much, just how exciting and painful and downright horrible and utterly bloody brilliant it can all be. I've thought about writing this for a few years, and now composing this at the age of 51, I think I've had enough time to reflect on my past decade and realise A, what the fuck was I thinking? And B, it's been the best 10 years of my life. And those two polarised thoughts tend to bookend so many of the experiences I've had. The racing, the training, the buying of kit, the travelling, the 3 a.m. alarms so that I can jump into a lake colder than a polar bear's gonads with 1,000 like-minded idiots. What the fuck am I doing? I love this. If you read this far, past the "this is the short version" part of the introduction above, I'm guessing you're in for the long haul. No special kit is required for reading this book, and you can have an energy gel-free hour or two. Just make sure you're sitting comfortably in an armchair with a coffee and a flak jacket next to you, And if some of you are wearing a sneaky pair of tri-shorts under your pyjama bottoms or calf guards beneath your jeans, you're barking mad, but I understand. So toes on the line, heart rate elevated. Did you remember to anti-chafe cream your undercarriage? It's too late. The gun fires and we're on to part 1. That is the introduction to Run, Walk, Crawl. Actually, it's my first self-published paperback. It's available only on Amazon. So go pick it up, have a little read, tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. More importantly, check out all the other videos on Celebrate Horror 2021, put together by the wonderful Sadie. Thanks, Sadie. Thanks for asking me to read a little bit from this book, even though it's barely on the periphery of horror. And I hope you're all well and heading out of the pandemic and heading towards better times when we can all meet up at a race or at a convention, one or the other. I'm happy with both. Cheers, guys. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.